Third year with us. During the summer, you may or may not see that we extended Dr. Johnson's contract for 5 years because we have that much faith in him. We really appreciate what he brings to the district. This summer, we did a teacher negotiation, and he really put our teachers first, really wanted to make sure that they were getting all the great compensation. You see a lot of other districts that were going through strikes, and he brought in a very different approach that many teachers, I hope, appreciated. Other things that we see, and the other reason why we extended his contract is go look around a lot of other school districts in the Quad Cities, and some that will remain nameless, but you see what's going on in that district where they are basically have multiple superintendents, and Carl's by himself. Carl just does everything by himself, and it's amazing the amount of work that he does. We're extremely lucky to have him here in the district. So with that, I'll turn this over to Dr. Johnson.
I'm going to try real hard to live up to that introduction. Not sure I can, but we'll go for it. Let's see. As Mr. Fuller said, I'm Carl Johnson. I'm oftentimes in the community for community input sessions. I see a couple friendly faces in here from those sessions that we've done in the communities. I want to keep doing those again this year. So if you see anything on social media or our website about, hey, we're going to be out in the community, come on out. We'll usually have some kind of treats. If nothing else, we'll get you a sugar rush as you're out and about. Try clicking on the recorder, that doesn't work. First thing I want to talk about tonight, Sherrard students. This is, we're here because of the kids. We do what we do because of the kids, and again, I think that's very important to make sure that everybody keeps at the top of the list. Why are you an educator? Because I want to make a difference for kids. I want to make a difference for families. If you keep that at the top of the list, I think you're always going to be doing the right thing. I'm a firm believer that you might not get it right the first time, but if you make a mistake and you're going 100 miles an hour to make that mistake, I'm going to work awful hard to help you because that shows that you're trying. So that's definitely a motto that we have at Sherrard with our staff is, we're going to try as hard as we can to help every kid in every way that we can. Having a student-centered approach all the way from the board to the teachers, to the bus drivers, to the custodians, to the superintendent makes a huge difference. And I think we are kind of the sweet spot as far as the size of the district, that we can really provide awesome services, but still keep things somewhat personalized. A few words to describe our students. These are some things that stick in my mind. They're resilient, they're reliable, they're remarkable, they're ready. I'm not going to bird walk very much tonight. I'm going to try to stick to the facts and figures. But one bird walk I'm going to do is I paid for most of my grad school by pouring and finishing concrete. So many of you have probably seen me limp around. That explains a lot of it. But I had the opportunity this summer to take our summer crew of kids that are either seniors or college freshmen, and they learned how to pour concrete with Dr. Johnson because we had a couple bids, and it's like, oh, no way, we're not going to do that. We've got all these young strapping lads here, and I'm going to teach them on the fly, and we're going to do this. And these 4 words really described what I saw when I had these kids who they'd never done this before, but boy, they were ready, and they followed directions, and if I told them to do something different, they did it. And, if I said, okay, let's, on the hop, you're 90 minutes from disaster, they were hustling. So it was really cool to see that little group of guys that were so on top of it and so ready to learn. And they did a remarkable job. So if you ever, when you're buying tickets to a football game or a soccer game this fall, when you walk up to the ticket booth, take a look and see what they did. Or if you have a son or a daughter that throws discus, we have a temporary discus ring out back here. So check that out. You can kind of rate the boys on how they did. I'm going to blame them or give them credit either way. I think it's important when we talk about our kids that we have to understand they have to be ready for the world. If the world means you're going to go to work right away, be ready for it. Have the skills that you need. If you're going to take an apprenticeship and go into the trades. That means you need to be ready when you walk out of the high school to be able to do those things. If you want to be successful in college, that means you have to be ready when you walk out of here. And again, I talked about our staff. Those are the things that they're going to try to make sure that the students are ready to go when they walk out of here. And it just doesn't, you know, it doesn't start and end with the high school, obviously. It's what kind of a background are the kids getting before they get to high school? What are we building on all the way from pre-K at Winola, as I've seen Ms. Roberts smiling in the crowd, on up to when they walk across that stage and we get to shake their hands at graduation. What have they done here? What have they built upon? What have they relied on their parents as well to make sure that they're going to be ready for that next step of life? Now, when I talk about these things, a lot of times I personalize them because I've got kids from 26 to 17. Okay, tried working on some trigonometry last night at the table. That didn't work out real well, but anyway, nonetheless, last one's a senior. So I personalize these things because I really do see firsthand what it means to have the kids ready to go and what it means when you see those teachers working so hard with kids to make sure that they're ready to go. One of the things that I'll always say is don't be an 8 to 3 student. That means there's always things to do before school that you can be involved with, and Lord knows there's a ton of things after school that you can be involved with. And that means here at the school, we want everybody to be involved in those community organizations, but we want people to know also, we want those students to be involved in extracurriculars. You know, we want them to sing, we want them to play instruments, we want them to be successful athletes and scholars. You can do all kinds of things after 3 o'clock. So I'm always pushing kids, and I'll ask, you know, especially the upperclassmen here at high school, they'll get these random questions from Dr. Johnson that maybe they weren't quite ready for in the hallway, because I want to know, what are you doing? What time do you get out of school? What do you do after school? Why are you going home? You need to be doing this. Do you have a 4.0 GPA? Well, no. Oh, beautiful. I know some teachers that would be willing to help you out. Pretty soon they realize across the hall, stay on the other side so he doesn't talk to them. So, but again, we need to make sure that we are encouraging those kids to be all that they can be while they are here and stick around even extra. Our staff is, again, this is what makes things go, the heartbeat. You know, remember the old Chevy commercial? To lead this off, I want to read some exit interview quotes. We had a number of retirees last year, and I did something it's very eye-opening and fun in most cases, to do an exit interview. And I walked in and I talked to these teachers that are retiring, well, not just teachers, but people who are retiring, some of whom have been with the district for nearly 40 years. And I just had a set of 5 questions that were kind of open-ended, and I just wanted to talk and give them a chance to give some feedback. What can you tell us after your career here at Girard? So I'm going to read a few of the comments. I was always supported and given a chance. This is a very caring and welcoming district. We have a very solid educational system in Girard. I would always tell young teachers to apply here. One of the fun things that I get to do is to award the Tiger Talent, the Golden Apple. If you've been to a board meeting before or watched a board meeting, you know what I'm talking about. Those are the exemplary people that we try to award in our district. And we're going to do another one of those tonight. But several of the people that I talked to on exit interviews, they have received that Tiger Talent Award, that Golden Apple. So I think that those are the people that you want to talk to. Those are the people that you want to learn from as a superintendent to make sure that you're doing the best that you can to make sure we have the best district we can. We are certainly fortunate to have some of the most talented teachers and staff in the nation, and I truly believe that. This is my 4th stop as far as 4th district that I've had the privilege to serve, and I tell that to people no matter where they go, and I'll run into people in the community. You know, hey, how is it being home? You know, some people that I might not have seen for the last 25 years. How does it feel? What do you think? How's it going? That type of thing. And inevitably, the circle always comes back to teachers and staff. You know, my entire family and all my nieces and nephews either went through Sherrard or are here now. So it inevitably turns to the teacher that made an impact on them, and they still remember it. And I talk about that every fall when we start school, because I will always have somebody that will see me over the summertime. Because when you're old and gray like me, you've had thousands of students over the years, and they will remember something that I've said or something that I did, and it always blows me away that they make those connections, that they remembered what probably at that time Coach Johnson told them, and it extends to the parents. They too will remember, hey, yeah, I remember what Mr. Miller said, I remember what Ms. Minch said, about my kid and helped him here, and it's literally a weekly or a monthly thing for me to be able to have those conversations. So it reminds me that the people are here for a reason. They're here to help your kids for a reason. Paraprofessionals, what they do in the classrooms, the teachers, what the going above and beyond, our food service, our transportation, our mechanics, our maintenance. They're all here first for the kids to make sure that they have what they need. So again, we're very, very fortunate with all the talented and hardworking staff that we have. Let's talk a little bit about facilities. Obviously, over the last 2.5 years, this has been one of the things that's certainly at the top of the list. It's a fun topic. It's demanding. It's challenging, but obviously, in the end, it can be very, very rewarding. It is obviously a necessity to make sure that we, as a district, a board, administration, to make sure that we're doing everything we can to make sure that we have the very best facilities that we can offer to our students. I want to quote my predecessor, Mr. Boucher, who had a certain way with words. When I was meeting with him after being hired, the snow was still falling, I know that. I drove out here to Sherrard, and we were sitting together in his office, and we were going to talk about facilities that day because there was a $14 million project that was really gearing up. And he said to me, I really like being able to have facilities that are so nice. When somebody comes here from another school and then goes home, they feel bad about their school. And if you know Mr. Boucher, you know that he didn't have a mean bone in his body, but boy, that was a great way to put it. I want people to be jealous of Sherrard. And I thought, yeah, I'm okay with that. I like that idea. Let's go ahead and make sure that everybody's jealous of Sherrard. And if we want to grow, if we want to make sure that we're the destination, I think we have to continue on that path to make sure that we have the best facilities we can have. This high school was built in 1978. I still have a picture in my office that right when they were literally starting to move out of the old building, which sat next to where my office is. For a 1978 building, this looks phenomenal. Okay, we've had, the school boards have done a great job of making sure that facilities are at the top of the list, making sure that we're keeping up with the facilities and modernizing them where needed. Actually, this auditorium, we're going to start to move to a little bit better lighting system with LEDs. When you're my size and you have to speak under lights like this, you feel like a rotisserie chicken. LEDs won't give off as much heat. That'll be awesome. But again, a lot of the things I'll talk about tonight are tied to that $14 million construction project. We'll start in Viola, the Winona Grade School. Completely revamped the HVAC systems, replaced it top to bottom. That might not sound like a lot, but Winona was actually, that building is where I started second grade, but it didn't get finished on time, so I started it like right after Christmas in second grade. That was when it was everybody thought it was a great idea, let's not make windows that open, because we've got air conditioning. Well, the air conditioning has drastically changed since that time. I won't put a date on it, just know that I'm old. And it had to be not just replaced, but reworked. We had some fabulous contractors in the area that did some really great things. And now Winona has been, for the last year at least, has been significantly cooler and more comfortable than it has been in the past. Now, part of that, and it ties right into this, and you're going to see with lighting and ceiling upgrades, That's going to be one of the biggest things that we as a district can do to make sure our facilities look good as soon as you walk in. Okay, we can upgrade to LED lights and save some money on power bills, but also the ceiling tiles. And Lowell is a good example of that because when you have a building that's humid for so long, those ceiling tiles start to sag a little bit, so it's not just the color, it may be the shape of it. But that's something that I'll come back to again and again for the different buildings, is trying to upgrade our lighting and ceiling so that when you walk in, you know, and you look up, you actually see something, oh, okay, yeah, that looks good. Sherrard Grade School obviously was that was the attention grabber over the last couple of years here. Completed windows, replaced some roofing, HVAC, and, heating and air conditioning additions. The classroom and gym addition was the biggest, again, attention grabber. And we also did some asphalt repairs at Sherrard, a couple of them. As you'll notice between the school and the fire station, we didn't have any choice. We had to do that because the heavy construction pretty much destroyed the blacktop parking lot, so we had to do some repairs there. Both approaches, if you're dropping kids off at Sherrard, you'll immediately know what I'm talking about. You no longer need a four-wheel drive truck to do those things. Some of the future things we're talking about is, since we changed literally the whole footprint of that building, we need to talk about some landscaping. There's some additional paving that can be done because, again, that footprint changed so much. All buildings have that life cycle of roofing. We're going to have to start talking about that. And then the lighting and the ceilings. If you really want to, and again, as I said, I'll keep coming back to this, but go over and look at Sherrard Elementary. Go into the new section and take a look at the lighting and the ceiling tiles. Nobody will laugh at you when you're walking around like this, okay? And then go to the older part of the building, and you can really see what an impact that makes. Unfortunately, that's a pretty big chunk of change, so we're going to have to make sure that we're planning for the future on those things. But I think literally every building in the district could greatly benefit from it. I won't even get into the studies on the different light temperature shades, et cetera, and what they do for learning. Matherville has new windows, new roofing, and some heating and air conditioning additions. A couple of those that are computer controlled, we're still trying to sort out. That was kind of a late project because that was a casualty of the supply chain setbacks, if you will. So that one finished almost a year beyond anticipation. We're still trying to work out a few of the bugs with the controls, but overall it's significantly better. And again, Matherville could use some landscaping. There were several trees that the pests, I think it was the emerald ash borers got into and ruined some of the trees, so they've had to come down. So there's some things we can do outside of the curb appeal. The paving is aging, probably original with the building. My predecessor did a phenomenal job of taking care of it, but again, it has a life cycle. And again, lightings and ceilings there too. And finally, what do we do here at the high school? If you haven't had a chance to see that, it's really incredible. If you've got younger kids and you haven't been up here, but you perhaps were graduates, you remember what it looks like. The hallways look phenomenal. I mean, we actually have modern-looking carpet tiles. Color scheme of the school, our colors. Several rooms were renovated, particularly the science rooms. They're pretty awesome, I'm not going to lie. New lockers in the flooring. We're finishing our last roofing project right now. We have one space that still has the rock-based roof on top of it. We're getting rid of that as we speak. Gym 2 was redone. It's beautiful in there now. And obviously our new state-of-the-art greenhouse that we were able to have a ribbon cutting on my first year, which was a great opportunity. Our FFA, you can read about some of the things they've done in there. It's really incredible. Let's see. All right, finance. Every homeowner's favorite part of the tax bill. Talk a little bit about our audit preview. Now, as a public entity in the state of Illinois, we're audited every year. And a good way to put it, they descend on our office with about a dozen people, and they go through everything. And they do what is called in auditing terms, I always love this in air quotes, they test things. They might pick out an invoice for paper towels in February. And then you have to, they will test to make sure we have followed the processes, both internal and external state law, to make sure that we did everything appropriate to order those. Take delivery of them, pay for them, put them in the right spot. They might pick the new driver's ed car. Did you go through the right process to bid that? So the audits that we go through are nothing short of intensive and incredible. Okay, so that's a good thing. Obviously, I'm a taxpayer too. I like that, the state of Illinois has those laws to make sure everything is on the up and up, and there is somebody keeping an eye on it. Overall, so all these statements that will come out are literally public knowledge and have been checked by other people. I was a social studies teacher, not a math teacher, but these people certainly know their numbers, and we post all this on the website as well. Our financial position, for lack of a better word, is awesome, strong. Okay? Our December tax levy, that's when the board and I are working to see what is the tax rate that's going to be set to collect money from property taxes, lack of a better term. Okay? We set that in December. The rates have dropped 7 times in 8 years. And we have dropped approximately 52 cents in 8 years. No one around here can say that. And I know that for sure because I texted all of my superintendent compadres in the area today to double check. Okay? I think from what I found, the closest one is 11 cents higher than us. Okay? Right now our tax rate is on I think it's on the last page of your prospectus there. We are about $4.30. I think the closest one is Rockridge at $4.41. So this is real money when you start plugging it in. So it's definitely something to keep an eye on, and I can vouch for the level of detail and attention that the school board puts on this because, this is my 3rd year. This is the longevity that we're talking about over 8 years. So the board has done an incredible job of making sure that they're all in, they're knowledgeable, and they're keeping an eye on this. And again, they're great stewards of taxpayer dollars. There we go. All these projects that I talked about were predominantly paid for with 2 funds, or 2 sources of funding. Bonding was the big one. So literally we borrowed money against future tax proceeds. And then also the grants. What you'll see is Sherrard used one-time money for one-time expenses. I know the news right now is just full of stories about schools that are feeling pinched because they may have taken one-time money and used it for recurring costs. And kind of the equivalent of paying your rent with a credit card. It's going to catch up to you at some point in time. So the board was extremely wise in making sure, okay, what is something that's a one-time expense? Boom, we can pave everything over at the bus garage so that the buses don't take a beating, and it's, we can park, we can make sure that we can work on them outside, etc. We can replace a roof that's going to last for 20 years. When I think where a lot of districts probably got in trouble is they said, oh, let's hire 30% more staff. But then when that money runs out, what do you do with that staff? You either have to let them go or find that money somewhere else. And I grew up on a farm, so I have that theory of there's 10 years and 7 are going to be okay, and 3 of them you better hope you save during those 7. So the Sherrard board did a phenomenal job of making sure that it was, again, one-time expenses with one-time money. The impacts of these grants. Again, I know that these oftentimes will come up when we talk about inflation and different things, but as far as Sherrard goes, the benefits were absolutely phenomenal. The board was able to borrow a significant amount of money, approximately $11, $12 million at historically low interest rates. So some of the things that we did right now, we would not be able to do again with current interest rates. It just wouldn't happen. Okay, but again, the timing was perfect, and I remember talking to Alan about that conversation was, okay, we've got this pool of money with grants, but we don't have enough to do big things on the wish list, but interest rates are rock bottom. The board said, let's do it. And again, I think the facilities speak for themselves. But there were 3 rounds of what we refer to in the office as COVID money, COVID relief money, ESSERS. 190,000 was the first batch, almost $750,000 was the second, and then the third one was the big one at over $1.7 billion. And again, one-time money was used for one-time expenditures. Talk a little bit about the future. I think there's a variety of things to focus on when we talk about the future. It'll be a little bit like what I just went through with the summary, but I probably want to focus a little bit more on kids and learning versus the other financial pieces. It's not arbitrary, but and I don't want to say it's autopilot, but it's just minding the path that you're on and making sure that you're doing the right things. You're setting expenses appropriately, you're budgeting for them, and you're trying to control those costs. So there's less, it's less arbitrary. Again, once you're set on the path, it's a good way to go. Curriculum, however, is always changing. Some of the things that we're going to look at continuing, Steve Miller's with us tonight, curriculum director for K-6. He's already started a lot of these things, but it's not just to snap your fingers and it's done. So there's quite a few things we're going to keep working on. The K-6, ELA, English Language Arts, articulation and alignment to make sure that a classroom in Sherrard is doing the same thing as a classroom over NOLA. What you're doing in 2nd grade logically leads into what you're doing in 3rd grade, etc. Believe it or not, when we're talking about English Language Arts, that is much more difficult to align and articulate than it is for, say, math, because the numbers are what the numbers are. When you get to the liberal arts, well, there's different interpretations. Okay. Identifying a new math curriculum to make sure that we have a math curriculum that is going to work for our kids and get them ready for high school. As I said, I got to take a stab at trigonometry last night. The book that I was looking at with my daughters was copyrighted in 1997. So she had the audacity to look at me and say, well, it's like from your time, right? So you should know this. So I went to the kitchen after that. But anyway, no sore spot. Grade level alignment is a continual task to make sure that, again, the articulation between grade levels, that we are reaching for what we need to have with those kids. And again, does 1st grade adequately prepare for 2nd grade, does 2nd grade prepare for 3rd grade, and so on. Again, it's a continual task. Think of it as mowing the yard. It never goes away, and it always needs work. This is probably district-wide, identifying ways to create time for that grade level articulation and grade level alignment, I should say, vertical articulation. We just don't have a lot of time in this district with the structure that we have to be able to work together. Take our Wednesday early outs, for example. Those are phenomenal for work within a building, but if we want to get the Sherrard teachers together with the Winona teachers, you've eaten up that extra hour by travel for the most part. Okay? Now, yes, you can do some things through Zoom or Google Classroom, Google Meet, but it's not quite the same. We need to start thinking outside the box for the future to determine what it is we can do to get people together. Identifying efficiencies in our school structures and staffing. This is, as I said, I grew up on a farm, so I'm always in the back of my mind thinking, is there another shoe going to drop? Okay, this is what I'm talking about. We need to make sure that we as a district are best aligned to take care of things if the financial chips fall, so to speak. Okay? It's been good for quite a while since Illinois passed EBF, evidence-based funding. Schools have been getting a significantly larger check every year, and that's been very, very nice. But at some point in time, there's going to be an economic downturn. Again, I've taught through 2 different ones, okay? And so I know what that means. Taught in good times, taught in bad times. been an administrator in both, and let me tell you, the good times are much better. But are our school structures set up for success? And are there efficiencies in staffing that we can look at? We are not unlike any other district in the United States. We're kind of starting to face a uncomfortable discussion that we're going to have. What is too much screen time for kids? Everybody, I'm sure, has their own opinion. Everybody, I'm sure, can do their own research. What I can talk about from my point of view is how it impacts the learning environment. What is some of the questions we need to look at? What's the role of the one-to-one Chromebook policy? I'm old, so I remember the first time that this was a possibility. And what the discussion was is kids will have the world at their fingertips. They'll have all the information they need to know right there. Well, that was before everybody contemplated, can you really sort through those sources? And again, I speak from experience, kids 26 to 17, and I'll scratch my head some days and just look at them and say, you gotta be careful, don't believe everything you read on the internet, because that's what started World War I. Now, thank God my kids are sharp enough to laugh at me, they're no funny, okay? But, you know, there's a certain amount of truth in that. Oh, really? Is that what started World War I? The internet? You know, oh, you've read too much that you're not paying attention to. So, critically analyzing text, if you're gonna have kids that have all of that at their fingertips, are they going to be able to effectively sort it out and identify these sources of information? Okay, what does it truly mean? Ask the deeper questions. The most popular one here, to what extent do we allow cell phones? Everybody has an opinion. I know I've worked pretty hard. Mr. Johnson sitting in the audience here, associate principal here at Girard High School. He's the person that these students probably get to talk to if they can't sort out the cell phone policy as it's written. You know, are we as a district ready to effectively ban them in schools? And yes, I put that up there to kind of get folks' attention. Am I saying I'm ready to ban them? No, but I'm saying I'm ready for a conversation. And what does that mean? You know, what is too much screen time? Getting back to it. What is face-to-face interaction and what have we lost from it? And again, I was a social studies teacher, so I inevitably look at things through the written word. And I look at today's students, my own children included, and say, how many times have they communicated verbally through Snapchat with something that I had to write? So when the geezers like me are complaining about lack of grammar, you don't know where to put a comma. Well, where's your capitalization? Okay, either A, they haven't had to do it, or B, the autocorrect has done it for them, or C, it's texting, so you use punctuation in texting, you are old. At least that's what I've got, okay? But I think there can be a detrimental effect with technology sometimes. You know, so again, I'm ready to have these conversations because, again, I want what's best for the kids. I want to make sure that they're getting everything they can out of their education. Now, here's where I have our call to help, our strategic plan. Our strategic plan needs to, the plan itself is awesome. Of the districts I've been at, this is by far the best one, the most intense, and the most focused. No bird walks whatsoever to this. It's very focused. But we need help in updating it to make sure that we can address the things that we need to address, and for that we need to make sure that we have people to help out. And I know this is it's busy, you might not be able to see it, but some of the things that we need to talk about are, we're going to need a subgroup, if you will, I'll just call them subgroup, subcommittee, to talk about student achievement. What do we mean by a 21st century workforce? Okay? How do we train an agile workforce? Okay? What's our transformation? How do we move, you know, how do we get to where we want to be? What do we need for infrastructure and to sustain that? Right? And finally, how do we most effectively tell the Girard story? Okay? You can see some of the outcomes. for student achievement. We need to sustain an environment where students can live, learn, and play while allowing them to achieve wherever life takes them. Similar to what I talked about at the beginning. Down at the bottom, one of my favorite ones, tell the Sherrard story. Increase communication with stakeholders, community, and parents. I oftentimes say that when people are looking around, I want to make sure that if they don't live in Sherrard districts, the Sherrard district, they're sick of hearing about it. Okay, maybe I took a little hint from that one on those. To accomplish this, the Board of Education this fall is going to start focusing on some of the goals and some of the individual outcomes so that we can look at, are we aiming in the right direction, and what do we have to tweak to make sure we have what we need? Community involvement. It's the parents who really need to voice their concerns or their ideas. What do you want? What do you need? I came up with some amazing feedback when I was doing the community meetings, but I'll be honest with you, it was pretty few and far between. I didn't talk to a lot of people. I enjoyed the conversations I had, but I was a little bit optimistic. I thought if I'd roll into the Viola Fire Department, there'd be 20 people there to talk to me, and there wasn't. If I was in Matherville, there might be a couple dozen people that would like to chat about some things, and there wasn't. So two things happened. I got to talk to a few people pretty closely and listen, and I ate a lot of those Old Town cookies because nobody else was there. So when we're asking for that feedback, when we're asking for help, we're literally going to come and find you and sign you up for things. So now's the time to avoid eye contact and going in. Okay? Best practices say that when we have these subcommittees, you're probably going to look around, you're going to have parents, you probably have a board member, and you probably have an administrator, and at least one or two teachers on each of those things. And people will be able to pick, what are you passionate about? Okay, well, you're a recruiter. Okay, I know what it takes to look for the right skills, so I can pass that on to kids to see what do we need for an agile workforce. And again, I think it has to always center on, we need to make sure that we're taking the proper steps as educators to make sure the kids have what they need for life. And I already warned you that we're going to be reaching out. Social media, webpage, emails, my friendly phone calls. We're going to cast a wide net and make sure that we get a lot of people that are going to be able to help us work through these things. Concerns, not worries yet, but just concerns, some things that we need to look at. Number one, we are like every district in the United States right now. If you meet a school superintendent like me, no matter the size of the district, no matter the location, that says, I'm not worried about an educator shortage. They're either not really with it or they're lying to you, because we cannot look at this country and see the amount of teachers that came out 1995 from college versus what's coming out now and say everything's okay. We as a country, and starting with this district, have to make sure that we are doing what we can to attract youngsters, I'll call them, to this profession. Okay? Scheduling and transportation. We have a huge school district geographically, okay? And we run 2 bus routes to make sure that things are pretty good for parents and pretty good for kids, okay? We've worked hard to get as efficient as we can with that system. But again, back to number one, we're forever struggling to find bus drivers, okay? And our bus drivers get to drive relatively new air-conditioned buses. So the other superintendents in the area make fun of me about that type of thing. They're jealous, which is fine. But we need to worry about that. Interest rates. Interest rates at some point in time are going to come back down, which means we as a community, the school board, are going to start to be able to look at what are some big things that we would like to do. I would not want to be the school district who has to look to borrow money right now. Same thing as trying to refinance a house right now. Probably not very much fun. Okay? And then finally, our levy rates. Our levy rates, as I said, have dropped consistently over the last 8 years, and that is something that we are probably approaching the basement, if you will. Okay? There's probably not much lower that we can drop those. So I know the board, I pride myself, the board prides themselves with making sure that we take what we need, because when we're working through that levy and you see legally here's what you're able to collect, Sherrard never approaches that number. Okay? If anybody ever wants to have a real riveting financial discussion with me, stop by and I'll show you the numbers that I'm actually talking about. Okay. Energy efficiencies. Thank you, Eric. When I talked about all the lighting and the ceiling tiles, if we can update our lighting, obviously that's not just good for the kids, it's good for the pocketbook. We can save some money with that. We have a reminder out back. Our wind turbine is of the age, and if you know anything about those, they're almost entirely hydraulic once the wind starts spinning. I know that's very technical, wind spinning. Okay. If it's entirely hydraulic, that means at 20 years old it's going to leak, and leak it does. Well, it's just like your car. When the oil leaks out, it shuts down before something really bad happens. Okay? There's one crew in this part of the country that can work on that, and they're the ones that service that massive field out there in Henry County, all the way from the other side of Kewanee up till Alpha. If you've ever driven on 74 at night, you know what I'm talking about. Okay? So for those guys to drop everything and come to Sherrard to work on our turbine, the timing has to be right. Okay, so, but again, that's a reminder of what can we do for energy efficiencies. You know, do we need to look at that turbine in terms of what does it mean to us right now versus what is its value to us right now? I know a field that my brother farms north of Iola, there's a big solar project going in there right now. You know, are those some things that we need to start talking about? There's all kinds of possibilities. And again, I want to give that shout out to the board that they are willing to look at these things and willing to talk about these things to see what we can do that's best for our taxpayers and for our kids. Okay. All right. I would say, are there any questions? But since we're at a board meeting, I'll just thank everybody for coming tonight. We do have a couple other things that we will do in this room, so I invite everybody to sit tight, and I will have Miss Elliott come up front here. And one of the things that I've talked about is the Tiger Talent Award. The Tiger Talent Award, actually, and this is a true story, was a brainstorm of Dr. Johnson when I was recovering from hip surgery. And when you're sitting there and you don't have a lot going on and you have a lot of time to sit and think, what you know, coming into a new job, what are we going to do? Well, positive recognition is one of the most powerful things that any organization can do. So we wanted to make sure that we were recognizing all of our very positive people. And the name that was ascribed to this, I'll get out of the way so the folks can work here, was Tiger Talent. And long story short, what the Tiger Talent Award is if I, as a superintendent, am looking at a teacher to hire and I really want them to come to the district, to whom am I going to take them and introduce them? I want people who, as soon as they start talking to this person, they're like, I want to teach with them. This is the district I want to be at because this person is awesome. Okay? Literally the people that sell our district for us, so that's all that I would have to do. And in addition to that, this award, you get this lovely little inscribed Sherrard bell that says Tiger Talent Dedication Award. And yes, it actually rings, and I know most recipients of this will walk by their colleagues ringing it in their face, which is perfectly acceptable for this award. But without further ado, I will turn it over, and you guys can learn more about the Tiger Talent winner.
that he is so very deserving of this Tiger Talent Award.
So without further ado, let's welcome Mr. Hamlis down front to collect his golden apple. A person I know, no one deserves it more than he does. Bill Hamlis. For the record, we've never had a crowd like this for a golden apple, for a Tiger Talent Award. And if you notice when Bill walked down, he had that look in his eye like, wouldn't have come if I knew these people were going to come and cheer for me. What happened? But I can't say enough good things about Bill. I enjoy talking to him. As I mentioned, farm background. It's always interesting to hear what he has to say. No one goes above and beyond as much as Bill does. He's built this ag program into a juggernaut. I mean, it literally is incredible. The connections that he makes, the things, I guess for any taxpayer, the things that he gets us just by the force of his personality and effort is incredible. And I say that as the guy who gets to see the bottom line in their ag account, fundraising account. It's amazing what he gets the community to do, what he gets the kids to do. It's incredible, and we're all so much better for it. We measure the food that Bill's ag program grows and gives away in the greenhouse in tons. It is just absolutely incredible to have a person like this, especially for the second career, right? And again, I believe Ms. Frank said retirement in Illinois is 35 years of service, so I know you're on your way, but again, one more round of applause for Mr. Hamlis. In the back, wave your hand if you're Mr. Hamlis' family. Students and or former students, colleagues, and parents. Again, the board can back this up. We've never had a crowd like this before. It's absolutely incredible. Thank you all for coming out to honor Bill, and thank you for sharing him with us. It's really been something great, and I hope he decides to stay for a long, long time. So thank you, Bill. We appreciate you. Now our order of events will be, we will briefly adjourn to reconvene in the library for the bulk of our meeting. I can promise you that it will be nowhere near as exciting as the first half of the meeting, but you are still all welcome to stay if you would like in the library.